From my team, we have Stella Zhao, who's a public consultation coordinator, and Jill McLaughlin, who's a supervisor of outreach and special projects. And we have Prapan Dave, who's a director of capital projects design and delivery. You've heard from Gord, also from his office, we have Cyan. And then on our consultant team, we have Ben Vanderveen and Aaron Houle, both of whom you'll be hearing from today, and Maisie McNaughton, who's an active transportation designer on their team, who will probably be helping answer questions today as well. Did I miss anyone who is here from the city team whom I may not have captured? Okay, great. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so we do want to hear from you in a range of ways. This is one of the ways. You should see on the side of your screen a poll opening up. So you've heard who's here from the city team. We want to know something about who's in the room and what you care about in High Park from the community. So this question, you have to pick one. We won't always make you pick one option, but here, what is your favorite reason to visit High Park? Is a poll on. You should be able to open Slido. If it doesn't just open for you, you should be able to see it also in a bubble on the side. Do folks see this? Oh, okay, we're having some technical difficulty with this, apparently.
It's open now.
Okay, great. Now it's open. So we know you might have many reasons you love to visit the park. We're just going to ask for one, and for now, so folks can get a sense of who else is around and what they've been doing in the park. So you have to click on the item, and then you have to click send. And then you should be able to see who else is here and what their favorite things to do are in the park. I will leave it open for another 30 seconds or so. We've got 162 people have responded. Still going up. Lots of nature lovers. Great. Okay, still going up. I'll leave it another 20 seconds here. Okay, we'll leave it there. Folks can see that. Can you see the results on the side of your screen? We have a lot of nature lovers. We have a lot of cyclists. We have a lot of people who come to the park to be with family and friends. We have folks who do exercise. We have dog walkers. We have folks who visit the sites, Cherry Blossoms, the Hillside Garden. We have people who come for sports. We have people who come for the playgrounds. We have people who garden, and we have people who do ceremonial and cultural activities. So thank you. Thanks for letting us know who's here. That's helpful to us and hopefully to each other, so you know who's in the room. It's the downside of a webinar. It allows us to have a lot of people, but a little bit less interaction. So moving forward, let's go to the next slide. I'm going to hand over to Katie Black, who's going to give an introduction to the project and the project scope. Take it away, Katie.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today and joining us. We appreciate you taking the time. First, I'm going to give an overview about where we're at in the implementation of the High Park Movement Strategy in general. And then I'll talk a bit more specifically about what this project, what our goals are, and what it's all about. So if you can, so the implementation of the High Park Movement Strategy has involved some immediate actions that happened right after it was passed by council in 2023. And since then, there have also been some interim changes to the park roads that you'll be familiar with. And what we're working on today is permanent improvements. Eventually, there will be a report to council in 2027, and that's a report to council on the implementation of these works and the monitoring of them. You could go to the next slide, please. So immediately when the movement strategy was passed by council, it involved changes in patterns of travel through the park, including closure of West Road and portions of Colburn Lodge Drive to cars at all times. The continuation of full road closures on weekends and holidays, and the movement or the change of vehicle movement, the main vehicle access being off of Parkside Drive, and exiting off of from onto Bloor. So making that one-way vehicular travel onto Bloor Street. Next slide, please. In addition to those changes, there's also been a lot of changes to the way cyclists and pedestrians are moving in the space too. Dedicated cycling lanes have been installed, including painted lines and plastic boulders, not boulders, bollards. And that was moved from one side of Colburn Lodge Drive to another. There have been improvements to pedestrian crossings, including signage and line painting, changes to traffic signals and signage, and activation of decommissioned parking spaces with seating and games. So you'll, in the image right here, you can, it's showing some picnic tables that have been provided in a decommissioned parking space. And you'll see that this does not look very permanent. These are kind of temporary solutions meant, and that's what the focus of our current work is to make some of these changes feel more settled within the park and more permanent. Next slide, please. So that's what we're here to talk about today is those permanent improvements. So some of that will involve conversion of the decommissioned parking spaces to green space and environmentally sensitive areas. There are plans to do some of that work this spring, and signage will be posted in the park prior to that work happening. There's also permanent road redesign construction works to rebalance the roads, enhance safety, and support all modes of mobility. So that's what we'll be discussing today. And there have also been transit improvements. TTC service began in the park on weekends and holidays starting March 15th. And weekday service will begin in May 4th. So we're getting more buses through the park and more access to the park through the TTC. It starts up at High Park Station and does a loop through the park. Next slide, please. And then there will be the report to council. So based on the implementation work and everything that's been done to date, and monitoring of those results, staff will report to council to provide direction on any recommended additional travel network changes and improvements, including the potential for full road closures at all times in High Park. Next slide. So I'll go to now over the project overview. So that's specifically the work that we're focusing on today. Next slide, please. So the goals of the road redesign work are to implement the recommendations within the High Park movement strategy regarding specific roadways and pedestrian areas in the park. And the overall goal of the movement strategy is to better serve park users and the surrounding community while prioritizing improvements to safety, accessibility, and the park's natural environment. So you'll see through the presentation today that we've tried to highlight how the designs are working to achieve those goals. And we welcome feedback on whether or not you think that those are working or not. And we've included questions in our online survey too, for folks to respond that way. The scope of the project is focused on Colburn Lodge Drive, West Road, and Center Road. And it will include intersection and road crossing safety improvements, sidewalk expansions, permanent buffered cycle lanes, the construction of a diverted cycle lane around the Grenadier Cafe, and considerations for ecologically sensitive areas, existing trees, and ongoing stewardship initiatives. I see a lot of turtle emojis in the chat, so maybe those are turtle protectors joining us today. But those are definitely being considered as part of this work. The work along Center Road is limited to pedestrian improvements along the sidewalks, and that will include things like bringing them up to accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act standards, and the Toronto Accessibility Design Guideline standards, where they're giving specific distances for providing benches or rest areas and things like that. So we're bringing them up to standard with that. Next slide, please. So in terms of where we're at in the project schedule, I'm sure many folks were involved in our fall initial phase of the work, where we had an online mapping survey for folks to provide their feedback. Our consultants were also in gathering background information in that stage as well, getting up to speed on how the movement strategy has been implemented so far and how it's been working so far. Now we are exploring design options. So we've prepared 2 options for folks to review and get feedback on. We're also getting feedback from a number of other technical partners, such as the TTC, different city partners or divisions, such as transportation services or natural resource protection, those kind of things. So we're getting feedback on those design options. And in the summer, once we've heard all of that feedback, both from the public and our technical feedback, we'll be putting that into using all of that to develop a preferred design. So that's communicating the direction in summer 2026. Once we've brought that to the public, we will then begin and heard feedback on that final preferred direction. We will then begin our detailed design and contract documentation. So that's putting that all into construction documents. And the aim is to tender the works in spring 2027 for a summer 2027 construction start. The works will be phased. The phasing is to be determined, but the plan is that all of these impacts will be communicated out to folks, because we know this will have an impact on how people use the park. And we will be doing whatever we can to minimize those impacts on park users. But we know that there will definitely be some impact, so we'll be working to phase it so that we can minimize it however we can. Next slide, please. And this just goes over the engagement that we've done to date. So in that phase 1 that I was referring to earlier, we had the public life study, a social pinpoint study, Indigenous sharing circles. We met with the Parks and Recreation Disability Advisory Steering Committee. And in this stage, we have the online survey up. We've had Indigenous sharing circles. We had a focus group with different local organizations, permit holders, just a couple weeks ago. We're having our meeting today, and we'll also be meeting with the Disability Advisory Steering Committee. And in the next stage, we'll be having another open house. We'll be sharing the options online and having an Indigenous sharing circle. Next slide, please. So to recap some of the engagement to date, and I'll try to be quick with this because I know we're getting short on time. The public life study that we held in the summer and spring of last year included 6 observation zones along parts of park roads that were to be improved through the movement strategy. So the zones were selected for proximity to major entrances, pathways, and park features, and they're quite similar to some of the focus areas that you'll see that we're focusing on in the designs. It included over 48 hours of spring and summer observations conducted consistently on 2 weekdays and 2 weekend days. So a Tuesday and a Saturday in the spring and a Tuesday and a Saturday in the summer, and gathered observations based on age, gender, travel modes, stationary activities, postures of park visitors, all kinds of things. And this chart on the right shows how people are moving around the park, and you can see just how many pedestrians there are. It's a really huge number here, so it just highlights how many people are moving and walking through the park, and how we should prioritize pedestrian movement through the park. Next slide. We also had a social pinpoint activity, and you can see the map here on the left with over 1,800 markers placed on it. And within those markers, sometimes people put multiple comments. So there were over 3,000 comments. And the top 5 themes were specific suggestions for road design improvements. We received a lot of specific suggestions for that. We heard concerns for fast cyclists. There were some general safety concerns, concerns about accessibility, and appreciation of the car-free park. Next slide, please. And from those social pinpoint activities, we saw there were zones that stood out to have the most comments. Zone F, where the Grenadier Cafe, Center Road, Colburn Lodge Drive, and West Road meet, had the most comments, followed by Zone J, which is the recreation area along Colburn Lodge Drive. Then zones A and B, so the Bloor Street entrance, as well as the Colburn Lodge Drive, Spring Road, and West Road intersection. And then zone C near the playground. So we chose the areas that you are seeing in the on the online survey and that we'll be talking about today, based on these areas where we've received the most comments, because this is where people have the most input and have the most concerns about safety and movement through these spaces. Next slide, please. Okay, Lindsay, can I take it over to you to
Absolutely.
do
Thank
the
you,
poll?
Katie. That was great. Okay, so as you've heard from Katie, the scope of this project is very specifically about rebalancing the roads for a variety of users. So we just want to hear briefly another opportunity for you to feed in some information to us and to know who else is here. How do you like moving through the park? And you can pick many, because I think many of us move through the park in many different ways. So yeah, so I think the poll is open, and yeah, if you hopefully you've found the polls by now. We got, as we found in the public life study, a lot of walkers and also a lot of cyclists. We still have quite a few people driving. We have some folks taking transit. Hopefully that's going to go up as transit service has been increased. We've got some rolling with mobility devices. This is great. Oh, I see 204 people have already replied. Okay, you guys are getting faster at this. That's fabulous. Okay. I think we can leave it 206. I think we can leave it there. And that's great. Folks can see the responses. Okay. So we can click to the next slide. Thank you for participating. It is helpful for us to hear from you guys at intervals and a bit more as we move into the design options. So I'm gonna hand it over to Ben. I believe you're speaking first for WSP. So
Take it from here.
great.
All right. Thanks a lot, Lindsay. Thanks for everyone who's joined today. It's great to see so many people on the attendee list. It's great to see so many people who care so much about this place that we're working on and working with you to improve. So Katie mentioned this in one of the previous slides, but I just wanted to focus on it again for a moment. The High Park Movement Strategy discussed a few kind of key goals that we want to focus now on when we move forward with the concept designs. The goal of the road redesign in kind of moving forward with the High Park Movement Strategy is to provide high quality public realm improvements that focus, and what we're going to focus on today is that enhancing safety, accessibility, and the park's natural environment. And so you'll see throughout the presentation, these kind of color-coded, safety is in the light purple, improved accessibility in this goldish yellow color, and then protecting the natural environment in that light blue. We're going to go through how we are making these improvements to focus on these design goals, and hopefully it kind of gives a clear view of where we're trying to head with this, so that you can give your feedback and let us know what you think about what the design is doing. So let's move on to the next slide. So we do have the two design options, but here in our approach to enhancing safety, I want to go over what both options and how both options enhance safety. There's a number of shared features between the two options. I don't know how many people have kind of taken a closer look through the survey, but some of the common themes that you'll see are listed here, and I'll go through them and how we think that they meet that goal. So one of the key items is crosswalks within the design options are proposed to be raised to give that feeling for pedestrians as they're moving across the road in various different locations. Not necessarily the priority, but a location where it's visually clear that they are meant to be crossing, and have that um, yeah, like I was saying, not necessarily priority, but have that clear indication of of that crossing level. Um, Another thing we wanted to do was provide very clear, continuous pedestrian routes within our designs. Now, you'll see in one of the options, there's actually a pedestrian loop that is on the inside of the loop. So along the west side of Colburn Lodge Drive and a portion of the east side of West Road. Option 1 does not have that, but option 2 does have that. The next item, and I think this is a really important one, not only for safety, but perceived safety, which is also a very important item for people feeling comfortable while walking through the park, are those buffered pedestrian paths of travel. So in many locations, we're narrowing slightly the vehicular lane and the cycling lanes, and in doing so, allowing for space for buffers between the pedestrian route and the vehicular route. The next item, providing that diverted cycle lane that connects West Road and Colburn Lodge Drive. So this diverted cycle lane is proposed to go north of the Grenadier Cafe. And what that does is it brings cyclists, instead of having them going south from West Road to the Center Road intersection, it diverts them north of the Grenadier Cafe and brings them away from one of the key conflict zones that we've heard from the public, we've heard from staff, anecdotally, plus data kind of supporting the fact that these are conflict areas. We've brought them away from that location and allow for, and in doing so, allow for that pedestrian plaza area south of Grenadier Cafe to be just that much safer, just that fewer number of potential conflicts. Other items, we're trying to improve clarity at intersections through pavement marking, signage, and other strategies. And we're using traffic calming design tools to reduce user conflict and overall speed within the park. You can go on to the next slide. Now, with our approach to enhancing accessibility, and this is focused on accessibility within the park, Katie touched on one. Along Center Road, we are planning on increasing the number of rest areas, doing some improvements along the walkway there. That's kind of the extent of what's happening along Center Road. But throughout the park, we want to meet and exceed the Toronto Accessibility Design Guideline and AODA minimums. So one of those being the minimum 2.1 meter wide pedestrian paths. In many locations, we're going wider than that, creating a very comfortable pedestrian and other mobility experience for other mobility devices as well that use sidewalks. Um, in addition to this, improving the pedestrian crossovers. I might call them PXOs from time to time during the presentations, just so you know. This is pedestrian crossings of the road, making sure they're AODA compliant, looking at ways to make that crossing of the roads more comfortable for people. Um, the next item we're looking at is increasing the amount of accessible seating. So the AODA and Toronto Accessible Design Guidelines have a goal of seating every 30 meters. This is a guideline, so it's not necessarily something that 100% needs to be met, but we're looking to meet um, the the goals of those guidelines as well. We in designing for parking along the Colburn Lodge Drive, we're maintaining the number of existing accessible parking spaces um, based on what is there currently after the 2023 High Park Movement Strategy changes took place. Improvements to the pickup drop-off areas are on our list. We're also looking to provide simplified, predictable pedestrian circulation, which is very important from an accessibility standpoint, providing clear Wheel-Trans and bus stop locations, and increasing bike parking as well. So again, looking to not just meet the minimum guidelines, but exceed them in as many ways as we can. And so we've got team members who are accessibility specialists who are looking at through their experience how we can make sure that this design improves the user experience for folks with accessibility needs, not just physical, also from kind of a neurodivergent standpoint as well. You can go to the next slide. And then our approach to enhancing the natural environment. So we've got to focus on improvements within the existing paved areas. So for the most part, I'd say 99% of the locations, we are staying within the existing limit of paving. There's some very minor exceptions to that. The last thing we want to do here is remove or even injure existing trees. So we're going to work very closely with Toronto Urban Forestry as well as the Ravine and Natural Feature Protection folks. A place like High Park really depends on the trees and the vegetation to be what it is, and the last thing we want to do is impact that negatively, and so we're going to work really hard to make sure we don't. If anything, we're expanding as part of the proposed designs the environmentally sensitive areas very slightly. I wouldn't say it's expanding greatly, but there's a couple key locations where we're actually shrinking the paved area slightly as part of our proposed design. And then the TRCA, the Toronto Region Conservation Authority, did a road ecology report, and in doing so, came up with a couple of recommendations for how we can improve High Park for animals within the park. And so a couple of those key items, or a key item that they looked at was road mortality of animals, so turtles, amphibians, and they made some recommendations. I wouldn't say any of them are earth shattering, but I'd say they're important recommendations. The first of which is these drop curbs that you see in that central upper photo, where smaller amphibians and reptiles would be funneled to cross. And then from the human side of things, we have the proposed wildlife crossing pavement marking, so that if we funnel creatures to one specific area to cross, and they actually do find the path of least resistance, especially the smaller ones. And if we show them where to go, we also need to show the humans where they might be. And so that's where the pavement markings and the educational signage come in. You can see here on the map below that there's 5 locations where those wildlife crossings are proposed as part of the road ecology report. And then as well, you see the dashed red line where we've proposed a railing and seat wall. And so this is, as part of the road ecology report, they recommended an exclusion fence, which just means that um, reptiles like turtles, who aren't the best climbers, will say they do climb fences every once in a while, but not the best climbers. They will not be able to cross into that uh, South Plaza area where we're planning on having a more pedestrian focused design. And likewise, it would stop people from or funnel people to the walkways that are within that area, kind of stop them from trampling as many of the nesting locations that turtles use along that hill. So we can go to the next slide. It looks like I'll pass it back to Lindsay for a moment for the next poll question.
Thanks, me again. So, um, we have talked to people earlier in this phase of engagement, tried to workshop some of these designs. And one of the things that realized we needed to make sure people understand clearly is what the goals of this phase of the movement strategy are. So this is what you've just heard from both Katie and Ben. So we're gonna launch a poll here, just asking about these 3 goals and trying to get a sense of, what people's priorities are. Stella, are you able to launch that?
My apologies. Give me a minute to get it out.
We having technical challenges here? We could. Oh, there we go. I was just going to change things, but here we go. Perfect. So these are the 3 goals. We just want people to kind of have a moment to really think about them, and to really have them front of mind as we go through the design options in the 5 specific areas of the park that's coming up next. So, yeah, pardon our typo in the word natural. That I presume you know what that means. And yeah, here we go, folks. Great, the polls are coming in. I had a few people say they didn't have time to respond last time, so I'm gonna deal with the awkward silence and leave it open for just a few more, maybe 1 more minute, and make sure folks have a chance to respond who are looking for the buttons and the busy WebEx screen. Yeah, we have 254 people in the meeting right now, and 212 of you have replied. So maybe not everyone wants to, but I will just hold on for a few more seconds, while still keeping us on track for time. Okay, our answers have slowed down, so in the interest of keeping us on track, we'll close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. So definitely safety was a key goal that this group cares about, but protecting the natural environment and improved accessibility are also high. So it's not that divided. It's actually relatively balanced. And good thing we don't have to pick. We are doing our best to achieve all 3 goals, and you'll see the different ways we're doing that in the next part of the presentation. So I will hand back to you, Ben, I believe.
Yep, that's right. I got this one and then the next one too. So looking at design options, why don't we go to the next slide? So as I mentioned before, we've got two different design options. At risk of getting too technical with things, I want to try to walk the line of making it accessible for everyone and giving you the details that you obviously want to figure out or want to see, so that you know that what we're doing for this park is good for the city, is good for users. Um, like I was saying, two distinct approaches. So the two options both improve safety and accessibility within the public realm, um, but they apply different strategies. Um, they apply proven strategies for incorporating a variety of road design elements throughout the proposed designs. They respond to the area, or they respond to each area's unique contextual and functional needs. So there's 5 different areas that we're going to focus on. The first 3 in a little bit more detail, and the fourth and fifth in a little bit less detail, a little bit further along in the presentation. But we thought we would bring these areas to the forefront, um, because they're areas that we want feedback on. Not that we don't want feedback for other areas, but there are areas that we want to focus on so that we can get some distinct feedback. The first one is the Spring Road intersection. So this is the area that you see on the left of the screen. It's the area from basically where Spring Road intersects with West Road and Colburn Lodge Drive, and where those two roads head north towards Bloor. The second location is the area number 2. It's the Colburn Lodge Drive Recreation Area is what we've called it. We wanted to focus on this area because this is where a lot of action happens within this loop. You have your pool, the rinks, tennis, the forest school, a number of places where food is sold, and these are key area. This is a key area where we're looking at improving amenities to support those existing uses. The third area is the West Roads. We're calling West Road South, near the Grenadier Plaza. And as I mentioned before, this is in this location, we're looking at diverting that cycle lane to the north of the Grenadier Cafe, making that South Plaza more pedestrian and those other mobility device centric areas, a centric area, while still allowing for maintenance vehicle and transit vehicle access through West Road towards Colburn Lodge Drive, and also looking at the intersection at Center Road as well. Areas number 4 and 5, we're looking at typical cross sections for Colburn Lodge Drive, and then for West Road. So just giving you an idea of what we're proposing for the new road widths, walkway widths, cycling widths, whether they're shared, whether they're separated, those kind of things. So why don't we move on to the next slide? So as I mentioned, 2 distinct options. When you just look at them from above for a few moments, it might be hard to pull out. So I'm going to try to walk you through how we've approached these. Option number 1, we're looking at separated modes of travel. So what this means is that instead of everyone being packed together on one route, we want to separate cyclists with physical barriers or pavement markings from vehicular lanes. Also then separating your pedestrian and mobility devices from vehicular lanes with something like a planted buffer that you see in the top right. Planted buffers being important not just for the aesthetic, but also from a safety and perceived safety element. Just think about your experience. You close your eyes walking along a road whose sidewalk is right against the curb where there's vehicles speeding by. Well, you're going to be a lot more comfortable if you're using that walkway and there's say a 1.22 meter planted buffer between that walkway and the vehicles. Not that vehicles are speeding necessarily in High Park, but nonetheless more comfortable. Again, the raised crosswalks. This is an item, gives you a visual cue that this is a location for pedestrians to cross. Um, the other item that we've looked at in option one is we've looked at what's called a type C PXO. The type C PXO, pedestrian crossing, has a push button and flashing lights, sometimes with a solar powered element, sometimes hardwired. Um, Based on some research that we've um, reviewed, these type C PXOs often have a higher compliance rate when it comes to vehicles approaching them, also when it comes to pedestrians using them. And then some improved road signage. So the road signage here is just an example of road signage. It's not necessarily what we'd be implementing here, but an option for throughout the park to clarify and improve how signage is placed so that it's user friendly. Some of the key impacts, these prioritize safety for all users and modes of transportation. It does require compliance of all user groups to be successful. So if you are separating modes of transportation, then you need the people using those separated facilities to comply with that um, separation. You don't want cyclists then just using the drive aisle for a time. You don't necessarily want pedestrians crossing in a location that doesn't have a pedestrian a PXO. But how we've kind of shaped this design, we believe it reduces those user conflicts, improves user clarity, and increases compliance with traffic infrastructure based on our experience, based on Ontario standards as well. We can go on to design option number two. So the approach for design option number two, and I didn't mention for design option number one, it really follows the High Park movement strategy. I don't know if ethos is the wrong word, but it really follows quite closely the goals and the design shown in the High Park movement strategy. It just formalizes it. What we've done as part of design option number two, we haven't strayed necessarily from the High Park movement strategy, but what we've done is we've kind of reimagined how some of the spaces can be used. We've looked at shared spaces based on some examples that we know of in Ontario, based on the City of Toronto Complete Streets guidelines, and based on some international examples that the team knows of and that other folks from our kind of design community have worked on in other places. What design option number two does is it focuses on shared spaces to create barrier-free environments. It naturally slows the movement and enhances safety through visual cues. And those visual cues, you can see some of them in the top right and top left photo, where there's different pavement surfacing. There's different pavement colors. There could be some, there's often a separation between pedestrian and mobility device space and the vehicular and cycling space, but pedestrians are still kind of welcome within that vehicular and cycling space as well. So we'll go through it in a little bit more detail as we go through those design options, but that was the thinking behind these shared spaces, that they would reduce speeds through raised paved areas and narrowed roads and cycle lanes, that shared space. They prioritize pedestrians while supporting low speed cycling and vehicles. They'd encourage social interactions walkability, and it often promotes a sense of community when you're not separating out those usages, and limits the opportunities for speed cycling. And on to the next slide. I'll go through the Spring Road intersection now. Again, you can see on the key map, this is the location that Spring Road, West Road, and Colburn Lodge Drive come together in a bit of a triangle, and then head north towards Bloor. So there's a number of safety concerns, accessibility concerns, and environmental concerns here that we've heard from the public, we've seen as part of the public life study, and we've noticed through our walkthroughs of the park. The number of crossings in this location, the low compliance with crossing infrastructure. So one of the complaints that we've heard, and that actually city staff has pointed out to us, is this is a pretty conflict-ridden intersection that you see in this photo here, with cyclists not necessarily following the rules of the road at the stop sign, with pedestrians not necessarily seeing those cyclists and changing their movement patterns accordingly. So what we're hoping to do is reduce this conflict area through design. Cycling speeds can be a problem here. There's a lack of user clarity, and there's a bus and cyclist conflict in this location as well, where the cycle lane and other cycling infrastructure crosses through bus stops. There's also accessibility concerns. There's a lack of seating in this area. There are some benches, but definitely falling short of the Toronto Accessibility Design Guideline and AODA guidelines. There's non-AODA compliant pedestrian crossings. That's something we certainly want to remedy. Poor pedestrian connectivity through here, based on how the sidewalks, how the walkways are, how they're focused, and how they don't necessarily bring people where they need to go. And then there's an issue with clarity on vehicle access at the Bloor Street entrance. And one of the things we've heard from people, again, environmental concerns. Don't touch the large existing trees. We love the large existing trees. So what we're doing is we're staying as far away from them as possible. There's one location here where we are going outside of the existing limit of paving, but not in a location where it would require a tree removal. We can go on to the next slide. So option one, again, with our color coding here, safety, accessibility, and environmental enhancements. So option one, we have one of the key items that you may notice as part of this is the pedestrian crossing is now shown north of Spring Road. What we think that does is it will reduce the conflict between cyclists who are turning left onto Spring Road to do the cycle loop, and pedestrians who are crossing. Pedestrians who are crossing who are crossing to walk along Spring Road no longer need to cross where that cycle loop would potentially conflict with their crossing. So that's one of the items that or one of the reasons, sorry, that we have shown that moved crossing. Now, again, nothing set in stone. These are ideas here, and we'd love to hear people's feedback on these. Some of the safety enhancements you'll see reduced and simplified pedestrian crossings through the intersection. Number two, those raised pedestrian crossings with signs and push button lights. Number three, a dedicated space for cyclists and vehicles. So you'll see as option 1, there's a separated cycling lane. In one location here, there's a merge between the cycle lane that's on the left side of the road, heading north along Colburn Lodge Drive. They will have to zipper weave with the um, vehicles using that space. But then again, once they're further north, it separates, and cyclists then would be in the cycle lane on the right side of the road. We're looking at clear pavement markings to guide pedestrians, cyclists, and vehicles. Bike lanes is raised at the bus platform to slow cycling speed. And when it comes to accessibility enhancements, looking at covered bench seating, again, minimum 2.1 meter wide pedestrian paths, AODA compliant pedestrian crossings. And here we've reduced very slightly, but reduced the paving area through road narrowing. Go to the next slide. Now you'll notice here in this option, the crossing locations have remained, but what we're planning to do is to raise the entire kind of potential conflict area here, so that as a cyclist use a different texture paving and color paving, so that as cyclists and vehicles move into this space, they see that there's a visual cue that it's a potential conflict zone, and and there could be pedestrian or conflicts with pedestrians moving through here. So we're looking at narrowing Spring Road and Colburn Lodge Drive to slow traffic. It also narrows the potential width that a pedestrian would need to cross, which is a lot more comfortable. Think about crossing a 6 meter wide road, 20 foot wide road compared to a 15-foot wide road. Doesn't seem like that large of a span, but it makes a big difference. And then again, the bike lane raised at the bus platform. And from an accessibility standpoint, covered bench seating. In this location, or in this option, there's a continuous sidewalk on the interior loop. And we've done that for the most part without increasing the paved space. We've done that by narrowing the roadway. And then step-free level movement at pedestrian crossings, minimum 2.1 meter wide pedestrian paths, AODA compliant pedestrian crossings, and a reduced paved area. We move on to the next one, and I'll have a good drink of water and a cough here.
Thank you, Ben. Okay, we're getting a lot of excellent questions. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. Our team is trying to answer your questions as quickly as possible in the chat, in the Q&A. Some of these questions we can't answer immediately because some of them we have to take back to the relevant other city divisions and check for them. But this is part of the purpose of tonight, is to gather the kinds of concerns, the kinds of questions, the kinds of suggestions that you are bringing to the meeting. So we're really appreciative that you're doing that. So we have a very brief moment to hear verbally from hopefully one or two of you. We're going to have to keep the meeting going because there are several other design areas. But if someone has ideally a clarifying question about the material we've just heard about, if it's about an upcoming area, then save your question. But we have a few minutes here for a verbal question. I see Dylan has a hand up, so you can unmute. Dylan Grieve, are you able to unmute?
Good.
Great. Yes.
I have a quick comment. First of all, I want to thank all of the work going through all of these options. I think it's definitely a tremendous amount of work looking through all the different users and such. I think what many have coined a high-speed cyclist user. I think something that I'd like to maybe bring to the table is a lens of how a lot of these options interact with each other. I think there's quite a few of them that perhaps are more accommodating to high-speed cyclists, which I think should also be considered as a park user. If you were out at the park on Friday when it was 20 degrees, I think there was a very large number of cyclists who I would put in that category of myself. Some of the raised road ideas, especially if they encourage maybe crossovers of pedestrians into those spaces, I think, well, perhaps well intentioned, I think maybe exacerbate the problem because if it's not very clear where pedestrians are supposed to be, it just creates more conflict, even if cyclists are slowing down or trying to slow down. So just really want to echo that as the city goes through these options, that really should consider the whole loop as a single unit rather than perhaps each individual section. Because I just worry that by raising some sections, yes, you might be slower there, but it's just going to potentially cause issues because if the intention is to push high-speed cyclists out of the parks, you are then, in a way excluding an existing road user. So just wanted to flag that for the team as you guys go through all these options. But again, thanks for all of the work on this in today's presentation.
Lindsay, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dylan. That was great input. There wasn't a question there, so I won't hand it back to the team to respond, but we will definitely be taking notes about the comments as well. Then time for one more question. I have Denise. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Bring my dog to Puppy Hill, and who got teed by a fast cyclist who failed to do their stops. They were at fault. Obviously, they didn't have insurance, and as a result, it's the drivers that got hit with anyone that is no fault. And I'm in insurance, by the way, so I do know what I'm talking about. Because they had no insurance, we're the ones that end up getting dinged, our insurance company. Now, when I approached the police about what's going on with these high-speed cyclists who do not respect the road, they never have. They come by on each side of you as you drive by. They give you the finger. They have attitude. So how are the pedestrians, now that you're taking away the drivers, claiming that it's the drivers that's causing the issues, what's going to be done about the cyclists? Because they're still not going to respect it. Even when you go through Puppy Hill, they would even be riding, some of them would be riding their bikes also on the dirt areas where they're not supposed to, claiming that it was the dogs that were damaging the environment. Again, it's cyclists. So I'd like to know, how is that going to be enforced and how is that truly going to protect? Because if they haven't, the past predicts the future. I'm not new to the neighborhood. I've been around for 30 years in the neighborhood, and it has not changed. And when it affected me as a driver, there's an issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Denise. Yeah, that's a heartfelt comment. I hear that. Is there anyone on the team who can briefly talk about compliance or conversations we might have about how people respond to the rules in the park? Because it sounds like this is behavior outside of the kind
Yeah,
of rules.
sorry, one other thing. So when I did approach the police about it, and they were actually there with radar for the cars going down the hill, you could see the cyclists were going, and you know what the cop said to me? We're not here for the cyclists. We're here for the vehicles. So it defeats the whole purpose of having police there and trying to protect the pedestrians, because kids are getting hit, dogs are getting hit, seniors are getting hit in that park.
Yeah,
Thank
it's
you.
definitely, I can hear how complex that issue is. Is there anyone who can briefly speak to the kind of interaction of all of these functions, the enforcement, it's a little bit outside the scope of the road design, but obviously it's connected because we're talking about how the road design might slow or might rely on compliance.
Enforcement is of behavior within the park is not really the jurisdiction of parks and recreation. Toronto Police Services does go to High Park and they do ticket both cyclists and vehicles. So they're in charge of speed and road enforcement. So really to bring this back to the road redesign, the focus of this redesign is to make it more clear where pedestrians are crossing, where vehicles are moving, where cyclists are moving, and trying to make folks more aware of these areas where there are high conflict. We know that there are areas of higher conflict or where there have been more safety concerns. So that's why those are the focus of what we're bringing to the public. So that's really all that's within our control within this road redesign project. But I understand your concerns, and I'm sorry that happened to you. But we appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, and that's it for time for the questions for this phase. We will have some other opportunities to hear verbally from folks, and please do keep putting your questions and comments in the chat. If possible, we do see your questions. We may it can bog the chat down if you keep posting that when you're not getting a response yet. We really are going to do our best to respond to as many as we can. I'm going to pass back to Ben to talk about the Colvin Lodge Drive recreation area.
To Aaron for this one.
Thanks, Ben.
Sorry, Aaron.
Yes, that's okay, Lindsay, no worries. So I'm going to talk about area number 2, Colburn Lodge Drive recreation area. You can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So area 2, this is a section of Colburn Lodge Drive that, if you remember from that main map, it runs on between the All Stars food vendor at the south and the nature school at the north. It's where a hub of existing recreation facilities are located, like the rink, the pool, the tennis court, the picnic area, and the baseball diamonds. So some of the safety concerns that we've heard and seen through the previous engagement in this area that has contributed to a number of conflicts reported in this area. It includes low compliance with the crossing infrastructure that's existing, fast cycling speeds, and the lack of user separation and clarity of user along the road. The accessibility concerns are limited pickup drop-off areas for the recreation facilities in this area, that there's not enough seating, that the crossings are not fully AODA compliant, like Ben was mentioning at the previous area, and that pedestrian paths of travel are obstructed or end abruptly in some areas. At some locations, light standards are currently in the middle of the pedestrian walkway, and sometimes just a walkway will end, or poor connectivity is shown in the park through desire lines, so people walking on grassed areas. Some of the environmental concerns in this area are to protect large existing trees. Very similar, you're going to see this as a theme throughout the park. It's something that's very important to us. And there's a large amount of paved area. You can see in that existing photo just how wide the existing paving is from curb to curb. And so we do intend to reduce that in this area as well. You can go to the next slide. So option 1 in this area, this is the theme for this option. It focuses on separating spaces to provide clarity between the users. So to mitigate the safety concerns in this particular area, we're proposing a separated cycle and vehicle lane, which is separated with either a concrete or planted median. So you can see the planted medians in green in the roadway, and then identified by number 1, more to the right of the page, you can see the concrete median identified. We're also looking at narrowed cycle lanes. You can see moving from right to left on the plan that the cycling lane transitions from 2 lanes with a recreational cycle lane with a passing lane, and it goes down to 1 cycle lane between those 2 bookend crosswalks, which leads to slower cycling speeds between the pedestrian crossings, trying to encourage those slower speeds in that high conflict area. The crosswalks will also be raised. So for pedestrians, you have barrier-free access across the road. And that will include the signage Ben discussed previously in our design toolkit. which will include signage and push button lights to alert vehicles and cyclists of pedestrians crossing at that time. And the last safety enhancement is a buffered pedestrian path, which uses those planted boulevards or railings where there's a space constraint to separate the users from the cycle or vehicle lanes. But this also really encourages or discourages crossing outside of a crosswalk. So when a pedestrian is walking along the sidewalk, they will wait for that opening in the railing or the planted boulevard to use a designated crosswalk. To improve accessibility in the area, we have included a formal sidewalk on the west side of Colburn Lodge Drive. So that's like page south of on the plan. And this is in front of the rink and the pool, which completes a desired circulation route that you could see on site by people walking on existing planted areas. We have included pickup drop-off areas in 2 locations. So one is close to the nature school, and I believe this is identified by I want to say number 6 on this plan. So one's close to the nature school, and one is closer to the amenities like the pool and the rink. And the bus stop and wheel stop or Wheel-Trans stop in this location will be maintained in the same location, but we will be adding seating in the vicinity for people sitting and waiting for transit or the Wheel-Trans to come pick them up or after they get dropped off. One of the other things is that there will be increased amount and variety of seating. One of the big things, I think it was the public life study, was the amount of people requesting seating in this area. So we've included seating opportunities ranging from bistro tables, seat walls, picnic tables, and lounge seating to provide accessible seating options, but a variety of seating options as well. The parallel parking spaces in front of the tennis courts will be maintained, and there will be an accessible parking space at this location as well. And then all paths of travel, similar throughout the rest of the park, is that all the paths of travel will be a minimum of 2.1 meters wide. So the environmental enhancements, you'll see a reduction in paving. There's some kind of dashed dark lines which show the limits of the existing paving here, and you'll see it better on the section, but more to the left-hand side of the plan. On the south side, you can see where previous decommissioned parking spaces were is now additional green space. We've also included some community enhancements that are in addition to all the safety and accessibility enhancements that we've provided or are proposing. And so identified with number 12 and 13 on the plan, you can see number 12 is an outdoor fitness space, adding an additional amenity for this area of the park. And then, like I talked about before, like more seating also means more social gathering space. So number 13 identifies, a larger paved area for gathering and resting nodes to take place. You can go to the next slide. So this is a section of this area of Colburn Lodge Drive. So in this section, you can see how some of the safety and accessibility enhancements are represented in the street at more of a pedestrian scale. Specifically, some of them regarding safety, like the separation of the vehicle and the cycle lane. You can see number 1 there is the separated or the planted median. As well as the narrowed cycle lane going down to 2.5 meters, identified with a number 2 there. This also shows a little bit better than the plan, the buffered widened pedestrian paths, which includes a new sidewalk on the left-hand side. So you have 2 options for pedestrians to circulate the park. And then you can also see how these seating nodes identified by number 4 interact with the rest of the park. So the picnic tables opening up into the park area, and then the bistro seating in the paved area, kind of adjacent to the walkway. You can go to the next slide. So option 2 focuses on an intentionally designed shared street to slow speeds. It takes the complete opposite approach to traffic calming than option 1 does. So the shared street is identified in this plan by the red hatch, and the safety enhancements that are listed and that I'll go through are all components of a shared street, and they really work together to calm traffic. They don't really work in isolation. And so the first component is the change of the color and the texture of the shared space. And that alerts the user, all users, to slow down and really pay attention as something's changed in their environment. And so this is a high conflict zone where pedestrians are crossing. So that's why it was chosen as one of the shared space areas in option 2. The second component is the shared travel lane. So in this area, you can see moving from right to left, the cycle and the vehicle lanes converge into a shared travel lane, which also encourages slower speeds as the vehicles and the cyclists try to navigate this space together as they move through and come together from a separated lane. So the third component is the designated crossings that still exist. It's still important in a shared street to encourage a predictable pedestrian movement and to provide that space, that safe space for everyone to cross. So in option 2, the crossings will have similar pedestrian priority signage, but they just won't have that flashing light that option 1 offered. And the last component of the safety enhancements and the shared street is a buffered pedestrian path of travel, which in a shared street, we call it a planting and furnishing zone. So this delineates the street edge, providing a visual separation between the pedestrians and the vehicles and cyclists in the shared lane. So this option has vertical elements that are placed in this buffer or furnishing and planting zone. And those vertical elements are bollards, trees and grates, site furnishing like benches or garbage receptacles. And having these vertical elements in this location really create a perceived discomfort from vehicles and cyclists, which results in slower speeds and more alertness in these areas. So moving on to the accessibility requirements or accessibility enhancements in this area, they're very similar to option 1. And with the new sidewalk in front of the pool and the rink. However, in this option, the sidewalk kind of extends north and wraps around Spring Road and continues into West Road as well. And we have similar pickup drop off. They're in the same locations as option 1, same as the bus stop, the Wheel-Trans, and additional seating. For the environmental enhancements, very similar, reduced paving in areas, some new tree plantings as well. And the community enhancements in this area, we have at number 12, the outdoor fitness installation, similar to option 1. And bocce ball or cornhole with some picnic tables identified by number 13, and then some social seating as well throughout this area of the park. You can go on to the next slide. So this section, you can really see the difference between option 1 and 2 in the sections. This illustrates the shared street condition, specifically on the left side of the street with the pedestrian path separated from the traffic lane with that buffer zone showing a tree and grate and a bench in this location. Accessibility wise, the shared street creates a step-free environment, allowing level movement through the space. So you can see there aren't any barrier curbs on the left-hand side where the shared street condition is in this particular section. And again, we've included the 2.1 meter wide pedestrian pathway and a variety of seating. You can go to the next slide. I think pass it back to Lindsay for some questions if we have time.
Yes, I'm going to stick to one question this time. We are running a few minutes behind. And I'm going to really ask, if possible, for us to keep it to not to general comments. I know folks are very, very passionate, but we really want to try and keep it to clarifying questions about these options. So, Brian, see, mute.
Hello. Yeah, I'm a, I'm a cyclist and I'm a cyclist that actually regularly uses High Park. That I go through there from work, but also I take a loop through there. I don't speed, but in the past, before the movement strategy was put in place, there was a lot of close passes that I encountered that are dangerous and illegal. And since the movement strategy got put in, that completely ceased. But I still notice people are still driving down West Road and still driving north from the Queensway to Bloor on a daily basis, and that's not good. And they're often honking at people when they're going south on West Road at speed or faster, and that's dangerous. What in the short term are you considering to prevent people from driving south on West Road at speed and driving north from the Queensway to get to Bloor at speed, even though it says do not enter or road closed? Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that question. Does anybody have a response about West Road? I think the question was specifically like in the shorter term, or what kinds of things are we considering for people using driving on West Road, which I believe they're not supposed to be on.
Do you
Um,
want?
I can, well, I think the question was about immediate plans, like what kind of, if I'm correct, Brian, like, because I think Ben and Aaron have spoken to like the more longer term ones. We can take that question back. I don't know of any immediate plans, but you're I think we can look into that because we do know and are aware, both from our side and from the operation side, that this is a concern, and that there might be some ways to try to provide some more visual cues or uh, some more indicators that West Road is not to be, that folks aren't supposed to turn left onto West Road. So thanks for that comment, or thanks for your suggestion, and we'll take that back.
Thanks, Katie.
The other thing is, I'm going to
So,
probably recommend maybe put a concrete bollard or something, or one of those temporary concrete separators in the middle of West Road, south of Spring Road, so they cannot drive further south. That could be easily moved during the time the trackless train is happening and then returned back in place. Usually using a forklift or, one of those water filled barriers.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. We'll look into that, and appreciate your suggestions.
great. Thank you so much. Okay. I have to leave it at one question at this point so we can keep hearing about the next set of options. Ben, is it you or Aaron speaking to the next area?
It's me again.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Lindsay. So West Road South, we can go to the next slide. So this is the area around the Grenadier Cafe, specifically the road that runs south of the Grenadier Cafe all the way to the intersection at Center Road. And we'll also talk about the proposed diverted cycle track at this location. So the safety concerns in this area are similar to Area 2. There is currently low compliance with the crossing and intersection infrastructure. There are fast cycling speeds and lack of user separation. However, at this particular location, there is the added concern of restricted sightlines due to the grade change between West Road and the Center Road intersection. So pedestrians, vehicles, and cyclists are all affected by the restricted sightlines as cyclists and vehicles move quickly through this space as they approach the intersection, and it gives little reaction time for those in the intersection to react and respond. Some of the accessibility concerns include a lack of clarity for the vehicle circulation, which in this area and in combination with the low compliance of the existing traffic signs and pavement markings, it is a safety concern that we do want to address. There are non-AODA compliant pedestrian crossings and poor pedestrian connectivity in this area, similar to the rest of the project area. And then the environmental concerns, again, protecting the large existing trees. And in this area, also protecting the turtle nesting locations, which are on top of Cherry Blossom Hill. So Ben talked about the wildlife exclusion measures. And through these options, I'll show you kind of what that looks like and where they're located. You can go to the next slide. So in option one, the main safety enhancements include the diverted cycle lane north of the Grenadier Cafe, the introduction of a pedestrian-oriented plaza, and the Center Road intersection improvements. So the diverted cycle lane, which is identified with number 1 on the plan, runs north of the Grenadier Cafe and redirects cycle traffic to bypass that southern portion of West Road and also the Center Road intersection. So this ultimately really allows the space in front of the cafe to be reprogrammed into a pedestrian-oriented plaza, which is designed as a shared street, like I've talked about in area 2 for option 2. So the shared street in this is identified on the plan with a darker gray than the asphalt paving. So because the diverted cycle track only authorized vehicles will be permitted in this shared street section of West Road, which allows for a way more flexible use, especially during peak seasons when there's an influx of visitors in this area. And lastly, the Center Road intersection improvements include a yield-controlled intersection with a mini roundabout, which I'll talk about in more detail in a couple slides. So we'll come back to that. The accessibility enhancements in this area include the introduction of a formalized sidewalk on the south side of West Road. So there will be pedestrian access on both sides of the road with additional pedestrian crossings to ensure the connectivity and to eliminate the dead end circulation that currently exists here. There's also an increase in accessible seating area that is separated from the cafe seating, which provides additional gathering and rest areas and use this space really like a plaza. The environmental enhancements are the wildlife exclusion measures. You can see them better in the sections, so I'll point those out there. And then the community enhancements, we're proposing to provide some space for programming opportunities like food trucks or markets or artisans that'll be programmed on like a seasonal basis perhaps, and social seating to promote gathering in this area. For the next slide. So this is a section cut through the pedestrian plaza area, and it highlights some of the shared street components that I mentioned in the previous area for option 2. And so those are the barrier-free raised street identified by number 1. It kind of captures that whole entire paved area. The narrowed travel lane is identified by number 2, and then the planting and furnishing zones that delineate the pedestrian path from the vehicle lanes are identified with number 3. Again, you can see the trees and grates and some benches in those locations. We have ensured that the paths of travel for pedestrians are a minimum of 2.1 meters wide and that they're adjacent to some integrated gathering and rest areas. And then identified by it should be number 6 actually. Number 5 on the section, you can see those wildlife exclusion seat walls, which keep pedestrians out of the turtle nesting areas and also discourage the turtles from entering a busy pedestrian plaza area and keep them safe. We can go on to the next slide. So this is focusing on the option 1, the Center Road intersection. And this responds to the safety concerns by like proposing a yield controlled intersection with a mini roundabout. And so some of the key outcomes are lower vehicle speeds. It provides a clear organization of traffic movement to minimize the conflict in this area. And this also is a better reflection of the current traffic movement, but it's formalizing it so all users can predict movement from vehicles and cyclists, and everyone is clear on the priority in this area as well. In this section, I'd also like to point out that the diverted cycle track going around the cafe will reduce the traffic in this area for cyclists. Only cyclists kind of entering from Colburn Lodge Drive, Center Road, or wanting to exit the main loop will be coming through this area. The crossing south on Colburn Lodge Drive, if you find number 2 on the plan, will include a pedestrian crossing with signage and flashing lights similar to the other areas of option 1, and a yield controlled crosswalk at the end of West Road for authorized vehicles entering back onto Colburn Lodge Drive in this area. And then the improved pavement markings at the intersection will also assist in making sure that the traffic movement is clear for all users in this area. You can go to the next slide. So option 2 overall has the same approach to the overall safety enhancements as option 1, which includes the pedestrian priority plaza, the diverted cycle track, and the intersection improvements. So, however, this option extends that raised shared street all the way to the intersection to include the entire intersection at Center Road, and is consistent with the approach that Ben reviewed in option 2 at the Spring Road intersection, actually. So the accessibility enhancements are also the same as option 1. We provide a formalized sidewalk on both sides of West Road along the plaza. The additional crossings are still there to ensure pedestrian connectivity is completed, and there's increased seating, and the crossings will be AODA compliant as well. We have the same environmental enhancements with the wildlife exclusion measures, new tree plantings, and as well as protecting existing trees, and the same community enhancements as well. In this option though, because the shared street extends beyond into Colburn Lodge Drive, this allows the potential for those food trucks and artisans or markets to be moved to a section of the existing Grenadier parking lot. So pedestrians can still access those programs, but then use the pedestrian plaza as it's intended to kind of sit, relax, gather, and maybe enjoy things that they've purchased at the cafe or at those food trucks. You can go to the next slide. And so this is a section again through the pedestrian plaza for option 2, and shows the components of the shared street again and how they come together in this option 2. So you can see the same elements. There's the room for the authorized vehicles, planting and furnishing zones that separates the pedestrian path of travel from the vehicle path of travel. And then you have the seating nodes as well, showing you some bistro seating. And in this option, you can see identified with number 6 is the railing option of the wildlife exclusion fencing. So this would operate the same way, but it is used where there's a space constraint and a seat wall can be placed. You can go to the next slide. So option 2 at the Center Road intersection, like I mentioned before, the whole street is raised to reduce the vehicle and cycle speeds through this whole area. The intersection will remain as a stop controlled intersection in this case, with clear cues for the vehicles to stop with the signage and the stop bars. So the idea with this option is that in combination with the reduced traffic expected in this area and also the raised intersection, the compliance here is expected to increase. The improved pavement markings will also be provided for clarity for cyclists and pedestrians moving through the space. And then similarly, the pedestrian crossing at Colburn Lodge Drive just south of West Road will include pedestrian priority signage, just without the flashing lights. And you can go on to the next slide. I'll pass it back to Lindsay if we're doing questions for this section as well.
Yes, so we have at least time for at least one question, hopefully two. Great. Denise, I see you with your hand up, but we did hear from you, so I'm just gonna go to the next person in the interest of hearing from a range of people. George, I have you next. And yeah, do you have a question? Oh, George Frater, you don't want to unmute?
Oh, I am unmuted now, right? Okay, hold on.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. This last session was mainly about that Grenadier restaurant. I'm a user of it. I love going to Hyde Park, but I don't live that near. So this idea of putting in caterers and vans and selling hot dogs, or what is that about? But I also qualify who I am. I'm 68. I can ride a bike. I got 3 bikes in the garage. I lived in Holland for 20 months, had 2 bikes there, one speed to go to work. Now, the bike fanatics are going to lose their velodrome. Maybe the city can build one somewhere in a parking lot or build a new parking lot. I'm very concerned about that using the restaurant, especially on a cold, lousy, rainy day. I'm not taking transit and I'm not going to ride my bike. I want to drive. So I'm worried about this closure that is unpredictable, maybe right now. The full closure of cars, is that coming?
Yeah, so we have heard this question a lot in the chat.
Yeah,
To
no
be
kidding.
to be clear, this work does not involve like this project and what we're discussing today.
Okay, I got you. It looks
Assumes
like it's about safety.
can I finish
It's about
answering my question?
public
The question?
safety, right? It's about
Yeah.
public
So
safety.
can I if you let me finish?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so what we're discussing today is road redesigns using the current travel patterns in the park. So
Okay,
access 5 days a week and closure
10-4.
on weekends and
Okay.
holidays. So that's
Okay,
this
how much
this
money
work
are you
assumes
gonna
that.
spend?
And
City's gonna
George,
pay for it,
to
right?
answer your, pardon me?
The city's gonna pay for this. I wanna know how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, I can't disclose our budget at the moment.
All right.
But we can get back to you on that.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Great. Sorry, I got bumped out of the call at the wrong moment. Okay. Let's move into the next section. Katie, is it? Yeah. Oh yeah. So is it Aaron or Ben? We have two areas together here, Colburn
Yep.
Lodge Drive and West Road.
Yeah, one more section from me. So yeah, we're gonna do areas 4 and 5 together. So typical sections of Colburn Lodge Drive and West Road. You can go to the next slide. So we won't really go into a lot of detail for both of these areas in this presentation, but they are included on the online survey. So full sections with I believe plans as well have been included in the survey. So please fill out those sections of the survey as well. So area 4 is the typical road profile along Colburn Lodge Drive. The particular section that we cut is close to the dog off leash area. And in option 1, we've included a passing cycle lane and a wider pedestrian buffer, whereas option 2 does not have a passing cycle lane in this option. But both include parallel parking beside the dog off leash area and provide additional seating in these areas for those using the dog off leash area or traveling through the park. In area 5 on West Road, so this is at the location of where this photo from the park is taken. Option 1 includes a separated vehicle and cycle lane. Again, on West Road, only authorized vehicles will be traveling on this road. It's not open to private vehicles. And option 2 has a narrower travel lane that's shared between cyclists and authorized vehicles. So this provides a wider space for pedestrian sidewalks and the expansion of the environmentally sensitive area adjacent to West Road, as well as a larger planting buffer between the shared road and the pedestrian sidewalk. I think that's it for area 4 and 5. You can go to the next slide. And we have another poll, so I'll pass it back to Lindsay.
So we actually, that section went faster than expected. So just before we go to this poll, we have time for 1 or 2 more questions from the group that we might not have had to get to. We were hoping to have a few more questions early on. So the first 2 people with their hands up I've heard from, but Catherine Miskell, you have your hand up for a comment. If you want to unmute yourself.
Through, and it's not reflective on just this past section, but kind of a more broadly, and especially it serves right into that poll that I just saw. What are kind of the merits or principles of the shared space versus what's the other terminal, like dedicated lanes versus shared space from a design principles? Is it, one is more natural, one is more conflict avoidance? So just because I think just looking at the actual design features versus understanding the principles, it was hard to really decide kind of where I saw a better design principle lying out. I don't know if anybody can talk about that.
That's an excellent question, and I'm pretty sure our designers would love to talk about that. Ben or Aaron, do either of you want to respond?
Do you
to that?
want to
We
hop in
touched
there,
on it
Aaron?
at the beginning.
You want to hop in there, Aaron? I know you've been giving a lot of thought to this. I can. Why don't you start, and I'll jump in if.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for that question. It's a good question, and it also gives us good feedback for how we are presenting the information. So we'll definitely keep that in mind as we progress the presentation further. As far as like high level design principles, we kind of stuck to describing these 2 options as separated space and shared space, just to describe, I guess, their physical attributes. But for design principles, I would say that the shared spaces is more focused on reducing speeds in high conflict zones. It's using a lot of design elements from our toolkit that do try to reduce speeds, such as the textured paving, the change in paving type, narrower lanes, the shared spaces, reduce speeds of both vehicles and cyclists. And then option 1, the separated spaces, I guess a high level design principle would just be, how would we describe it? I guess it would be reducing conflict, because you're allowing the users to have their own space, use them how they want to use them while respecting others in the park, and then still providing a safe crossing for when there is interaction between all the users. So at intersections and at crosswalks, we've tried to implement those same safety elements in both options. So does that answer your question from like a high level design principle? I don't know if maybe she got muted. And you're muted as well, Lindsay.
Yeah, sorry, she got muted, and now that was Catherine Miskell, right? I can unmute her again if
Yes,
she wants.
thank you. That answer, yeah, I think it would just have been good to have it as a like first up, shared space versus dedicated lanes, and then seeing how that kind of transcends into each design element afterwards, just as a way to kind of keep it in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, thanks for that feedback.
That's great feedback. I think we have time for 1 more quick question. And here I have Daniela is at the top of my list here. Daniela, can you unmute? Are you? Oh, I don't know where she went. Okay, and then the next person we haven't heard from them then is Katie. I'll let you unmute if you have a question.
Oh, hi. Um, hi. I have a question actually about the West Road in particular. That's an area where the cyclists could go at speed because it goes downhill. I do a lot of running in High Park, or I did do a lot of running in High Park. We always used to run in the easternmost lane, I guess it is, and and so there is a bike lane there, but the cyclists tend not to go there because, of course, it's narrow. And I'm just wondering if there's going to, I think there's a proposal to have a barrier there, but I wasn't exactly sure. Um, I think it would be a good idea to have a barrier there. Um, because I think, you know, the cyclists need to be separate from people who are running and walking and that sort of thing. So I'm just wondering what the proposal is for that.
What is the proposal for the West Road cycle separation? Is that
Correct? Yes, yes.
It'd probably be best just to go back a couple slides to take a look at our cross sections there to give a better idea. If
Are you
Stella,
able
I'm not
to-
sure if you're able to do that. Give people a visual.
Yes, trying to find the section.
Oh boy, a bit of technical difficulties. I gotta jump back to that one slide again.
it would
couple
be
more.
the
Yeah, a
West
couple
Road.
more. West Road. Sorry, Stella, putting you on the spot here.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
There we are. Oh, sorry. You know what? We don't have the cross section as part
It's
of
in
this.
the appendix, actually.
That's okay. It's in the appendix. I apologize. So the cross section for this road in our proposal, and you'll be able to see this a little bit better if you take a look at the survey.
Right.
But it has a pedestrian route where you see the two people walking close to the post. There's a planted buffer between them. And then in option 1, you have a shared vehicular and cycling lane next to a dedicated cycling lane. And then in option 2, a bit of space is actually given back to the ESA. The walkway is where you see the person running, roughly, and then there's a buffer, and then the shared vehicular and cycling lane. But again, I think there's going to be a little bit of a prompt to go take the survey, and that's a great spot to see that cross section.
Okay, so I'll have a look. Just another question. Are these diagrams available outside of the survey? So we can look at the diagrams and then do the survey? Do you know what I mean? Without having to go through the survey to,
So I can respond to that. The materials from this meeting are going to be posted on the project website, hopefully tomorrow, at least within a day or two of this meeting. And
okay,
they will have all the visuals. This is a way that we can make sure the deck is AODA compliant, like the information that we're sharing, and it'll be linked on the project website under phase 2, meetings and events. Download the meeting materials, and this deck will be shared. It's ready to go, so hopefully it gets up tomorrow.
okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. All right. Now we can go to our poll. Stella, if you don't mind. Okay. So this is a good question. Do you understand? Maybe we're going to get a lot of I don't know enough yet. And this will help us understand whether, having considered these two different design options, having looked at how they've been executed in these different spaces in the park, do you have, as of now, a kind of sense of being more having a stronger preference for one or the other approaches? I know there's a lot of details, but also a sense of guidance of the overall approaches does help us as we move towards a preferred design. So I'll leave this open for a minute. We have 119 people who've replied. We still have 213 people in the meeting, so I'll give a few more minutes. Great. A few more minutes, and just while people are responding, I will say we have been trying to respond to all of your questions in the Q&A. I know we haven't gotten to all of them. We will keep all of your questions and comments that were put in the Q&A as part of the record of this, summarize and report back on when we're reporting back on this meeting. So, and part of what we reflect on as the team moves towards the preferred design. So
We lost Lindsay.
Absolutely not.
Looks like we lost Lindsay.
Okay. I'll give her a minute to come back, but if not, we'll give a sad crying face.
Mm.
Oh, there you are.
oh my gosh, I am choosing the wrong moments to kick me out of this meeting. Anyway, you can always send a follow-up email to the High Park Move email. And some of those we can try to reply to as well, as we always do. Okay, we'll close the poll now. Definitely seeing a stronger preference for separated modes of travel. So if we're choosing other options, we're going to have to make it clear how those, I guess, address the concerns that people have raised. So yeah, thank you. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And I'm going to pass to you, Katie, and you're going to just let us know about some next steps.
Sure. Yeah. So the survey is open until the 21st. I've seen in the chat lots of folks have input on the survey format, and we're happy to hear your feedback on the survey format. We understand that this is a lot of technical information to communicate through a survey, so we're always welcome to feedback on how that could be communicated better. So happy to receive your feedback on the survey or for you to fill out the survey. We welcome your feedback anytime, and the survey is open till the 21st. Like Lindsay said, all of this is going to be posted on our project webpage and used to inform the preferred design. And we will be sharing that preferred design through another meeting like this, through an open house. Again, we really appreciate your feedback. There's still lots of time to provide it if you need more time to think. But really, we appreciate you taking the time out of your evening to do this. I am very happy that we're ending with 2 minutes to spare so that you can get back to your evening. So thanks very much for attending. There's a link to the survey right here, or you can go to our project webpage. Lindsay, this is the overall survey, correct?
Yeah, this is the overall survey. We've had lots.
We've lost Lindsay again. Okay, well,
time to, yeah.
We lost you for a bit there, Lindsay, but I'll let you say goodnight to everyone.
Thanks. I don't trust my link now. Please go to the survey. We really appreciate how many people are replying.
Okay. We'll sign off and say thank you, everyone.
What you care evaluation link for this meeting.
Lindsay, you've cut out again, but so thanks everyone, and have a great night.
Thank you, everyone.